This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And the champ is in the house.
I say, you going to get out of your system now or what?
The champ is in the house. The champ is in the house. One more time, the champ.
One is the key here. By 1 point, I should have another finger, but lost by 1.0 points. But
you lost.
That's the way it goes.
You lost. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley, champion of the ORFBL. And I believe that's the sixth time that I've won that championship.
Yeah, that competition's rough. They're pretty bad. You should win it everywhere. Now that I'm in it, at least we should go to the Super Bowl every year against those clowns.
7 of the last 11 years.
I hope they're listening.
They probably aren't. Anyways, but the champ is here.
Oh, that'd be better at fantasy if they were listening.
That's true. Anyways, so it is.
Congrats, you are the champ. Nicely done.
Monday here in Pittsburgh.
Crazy, it went down to the absolute wire, though. I thought I was totally out of it, and I Jaden Daniels. And actually, when he threw the last winning touchdown, that assured me losing because he couldn't get the ball again.
Right.
He came back and had a huge game, stormed back, and then to get 1 point short was a great play by him. So that's where we left off. Would have been nice if Aaron Jones or Devon Chan played in the second half, either one of them. But hey,
that's all right. Saquon Barkley barely played the fourth quarter, and
he only had like 180 rushing yards, and you're complaining about Saquon Barkley.
He could have had more. They had 4 Kenny Pickens tush pushes. He could have had a monster game in that game. Anyways, we digress. So we now know the Steelers will play.
Yeah, the schedule's out, huh?
Saturday night.
Yeah, and it's not wonderful.
Not super excited about that.
The folks that cover
because
it and have to deal with it, right?
Everything that happened this week. And Matt, I wanted to start with this, and I pointed this out to you over the course of the week last week. The NFL starting Monday.
This
last Monday, a week from yesterday.
2 days before Christmas.
A week from today, I should say. Had had like 6 standalone games between then and Saturday.
Well, they've played like every day of the week.
Yeah.
Which I've noticed a trend that my wife has got less nice to me every day as I've glued to the TV. And I'm going to even watch this Lions-Niners game that means nothing tonight.
These were some of the scores. 6-3. 31-2.
31-2. Yeah, they've been some barn burners. Yeah.
40-7. You had 29-10, which was the Steeler game.
Mm-hmm.
The Monday night game last week was a bad one.
I don't even.
That was a shutout. That was the shutout.
That was the only shutout.
That was
the
Saints.
Right. That was
posting the only shutout of the year.
Yeah, Packers Saints.
These standalone games are just like. I mean, I get it's the only game people can watch.
Mm-hmm.
That Thursday night 6-3 game was unwatchable.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
The 31-2 Baltimore-Houston game was bad.
It was.
When the Steelers, in those standalone games, with their 10 points, outscored more than half the teams that played.
More than half the losers, like all the losers.
And some of the winners.
Some of the winners, yeah.
In the standalone games, maybe we're not doing the right thing here by playing all these games Christmas week like that.
I think it's kind of terrible, to be honest with you. I mean, I could go on a long rant about. I will. I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, like, first off, we opened with fantasy, and it really didn't hurt me in our game, but it's killing people in fantasy. For example, and I know the NFL doesn't care.
I don't care about that.
But I'm just saying, like, the fact that that's the Super Bowl in such an abnormal week when the Lions could sit everyone tonight, but you started St. Brown, and it's worth all the marbles. Like, to me, that's just dumb. But fantasy always has some weird stuff. But the end of the season, NFL as a whole, is a mess.
It was such a weird week from that perspective, and I'm going to go back to the fantasy
and next
stuff.
Week's going to be weird too
because you had to lock starters in, or you couldn't.
That's what I mean.
You couldn't make bench changes because their games had already been played.
Right.
And then if you had an injury, you couldn't. It was
example like you had St. Brown, like you're saving all your Lions for tonight, and I know Campbell's not going to do this because he's a lunatic, but he could sit everybody, and all of a sudden you're like, I get nothing from any of them, even though I had the best team. Like stupid small example, but my other league, all that matters is cumulative points. I'm out of it. But I had 3 quarterbacks. I had Richardson, Tua, and May. And kickoff starts, and New England is the first game on Saturday. I didn't start May. I thought Tua or Richardson would likely play. 5 minutes into the Patriot game, it comes across my phone. Richardson's out. Tua's out. It's like people had to have all kinds of horror stories. But okay, back to just the league as a whole. It's just such a money grab. I mean, it's too much, and I couldn't be more into the NFL or love my job anymore.
That being said, I've watched every
snap.
Yeah,
right.
of all of them.
And it is beating it's a drain. It's too much.
It was a lot of football.
It's a lot of football. I mean, again, the wife's like, really? And one of them's Christmas, and it happens that the Steelers were 3-11 days as well, and they were Christmas, so it's even more. But it's been bonkers. And last little rant, which I know times have changed dramatically, but my Uncle Ken is probably the biggest reason I'm into football. He's around 10 years older than me, went to Steelers Super Bowls in the 70s, huge Steeler fans, as all my family are when I grew up the right way. And he no longer really cares about football. He's older, But one of his big things is, like, he'll ask me, like, how the Steelers doing this year, or he'll put it on, but he's not into it. But the big thing that he said a lot of people he talks to his age are, it used to be you played at 1 on Sunday or 4 on Sunday, and then Monday night was awesome. That was like a Super Bowl environment. And he's like, when it started going to Sunday night, Thursday night, it's got kind of flooded. Like it became no different than other sports. It's like, I'll put the Pens game on or the Pirate game on. And I could kind of get the feeling this week, the first time, where it's like, this is a lot. And it's beating me up. And I'm having a hard time enjoying it as much,
Yeah. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
It's not going away, though.
Mm-mm.
So here's what we got.
I think it's going to get like this all the time.
I don't know about that.
I don't know if they're going to have Tuesday and Wednesday games, but.
So we got the Kansas City Chiefs locking up the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. We knew that.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills have now clinched the number 2 seed.
Yeah.
With their win yesterday.
We assume neither one will play anybody next week.
I assume not.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs
I don't even
already
care
said
about
it.
all that.
Yeah.
Teams are going to do what they're going to do. The Ravens are currently the 3 seed, but if they lose on Sunday or Saturday, and then
They're
Steelers
the first
win
game Saturday, folks. Yeah,
Saturday night, the Steelers move into the 3 spot. If Baltimore wins and the Steelers win, the Steelers stay in the 5 spot because they're a game behind.
Ravens win the division.
The Houston Texans are locked in as the 4 seed right now at 9-7.
Sure.
Then you have the Steelers in the 5 seed. The only team that can pass the Steelers now in the 5 seed is the Chargers. The Steelers would need to lose or tie, and the Chargers would need to win their game outright.
Okay. And they play Sunday.
They play Sunday.
Yeah. There's no Thursday night. There's no Monday night this last week, folks.
Then you have the Denver Broncos, the Miami Dolphins, and Cincinnati Bengals all still alive because the Indianapolis Colts, somebody forgot to tell them that they needed to win that game on Sunday.
Boy, were they hideous.
Hideous.
I mean, there were some really hideous performances yesterday, but none worse by a team that was still in it. Like the Jets were awful. But
making Drew Lock look like he's...
Oh, yeah. Give up a kickoff return for a touchdown. I mean, yeah.
Awful.
I had the Colts D, by the way, in our game.
Yeah.
Big zero.
Took a zero.
No, big zero
from
on
your
that
defense.
one. Yeah.
That you picked up.
Could have at least got a sack, and we could have been a tie.
Yeah. So for that to happen, if Denver wins on Sunday against the Chiefs, who are probably not playing anybody,
probably playing Wentz.
Denver's in.
They're just a winning in, yeah.
But they're locked into the 7th spot. They can't pass Pittsburgh or the Chargers because they lost to both of them.
So if the Bengals beat the Steelers, they're going to be really Denver scoreboard watching.
Yes.
Yeah.
They'll also be watching Miami, which plays the Jets. Miami would finish ahead of if Miami and Denver finish both at 9 and 8, Miami goes.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
The only way Cincinnati gets in is if...
So is Miami winning in?
No, they need Denver to lose.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Denver's ahead of them now.
Denver's ahead of them now. Then you've got Cincinnati sitting there at 8 and 8. The only way they get in is if they tie Denver because they just beat Denver. They lose the tiebreaker to Miami, so they would need to win, have the Broncos lose to the ghost of the Chiefs, and have Miami lose to New York, which the Jets look like
they look really terrible.
They mailed it in yesterday.
They were one of the more pathetic performances out there.
Everybody else in the AFC is eliminated.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense, including the Colts, who deserve to be after that.
But the farthest that the Steelers can fall is the 6th seed.
So they're either 5, 6, or 3.
Yeah.
Okay. However, now we don't know this, but the Ravens are like 16-point favorites or something against the Browns this week.
18.5.
18.5. Okay.
Now I'll say this: the Browns' defense
wasn't horrible.
Has played really well against Lamar,
and they weren't even bad in this game.
No,
that the offense is junk,
putrid,
right.
Putrid. They can't. I don't know if they can start DTR again.
I was about to say the exact same thing.
I think you found out what you needed to know.
Yeah, I mean,
not good.
I think Winston's healthy, right? I mean, I think he was the emergency guy, though.
Yeah. Anyway, they did beat
chances of the Ravens winning is strong.
They're going to win.
Yeah.
They're going to win. So the Steelers are looking at the 5 seed if they win. Somehow, this game opened with Cincinnati favored by 2.5, and I got to be honest with you, I don't get it.
Well, I assume it's Steelers are on a 3-game losing streak and Bengals are on a 4-game winning streak.
Here's the thing. These two teams played, December 1st, less than a month ago.
That was the last game that the Bengals lost.
Yeah.
Could have meant there's one more in there.
It's also the last game the Steelers won.
Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah.
One's on a 4-game losing streak and one's on a 3-game?
Yeah.
Okay.
In that game, if you recall, the Steelers led 27-21 at the half, and the only reason that the Bengals had 21 was because they gifted pick 6.
Yeah.
That there was should have been a flag on it. They were up 17 points in the fourth quarter.
This game was in Cincy, too.
In Cincinnati. Even with, it would have been 24 points if the pick 6 is taken off the board, which it should not have counted.
Right. It was a bad call.
They'd have been up 24 points in the fourth quarter. They dominated the Bengals in that game.
No doubt.
The Bengals got some, by the way, backdoor stuff. The Steelers had 520 yards of offense in that game.
Mm-hmm.
They did whatever they wanted to on offense.
Yeah.
The entire game. So I don't care how good the Bengals offense is playing right now. The Bengals had to score 21 points, or what did they get in the fourth quarter? They scored 17 points in the second half to make it 44-38. They scored the last 14 points of the game, or actually, no, they didn't. They scored 14 in the last 17 in the game to even make it a game. Like, I don't understand how that gets them favored in Pittsburgh. I understand Burrow's playing great.
I think it's just a streak.
He's playing great.
Yeah.
But
he's unbelievable, yeah.
This, at the very least, this should have been a pick'em game. I think the wrong team is favored.
I don't disagree. I mean, I understand why. I mean, I just think momentum in the betting world is huge in terms of what bettors are going to bet. I mean, Vegas isn't predicting who's going to win. They're trying to get 50% to bet on one side and 50% to bet on the other.
Well, here's the thing, too. So they're going to look at this and say, well, yeah, but they lost to the Ravens, they lost to the Steelers, lost to the Eagles, and they lost to the Chiefs. Guess who also lost all those teams?
Oh, sure.
Cincinnati.
Yeah. No, I think it's just a momentum thing.
The only difference was the Steelers played them all 3 in a row, as opposed to playing them early in the season, late in the season.
It's funny. I was just on the air with Tim Benz, just filling in for Mark Madden, and he said, how much different would the perception of the Steelers be? He called it a snow globe. If we just shook up all their wins and losses and wherever they land, as opposed to boom, 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 And I'm like, yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Like if you just came off a Raiders win and we're talking about, well, it wasn't the Steelers' best game, but they still won by 14.
Let's say the wins over the Chargers and Broncos that you had earlier in the season. Let's say those were 2 of these 3 games that you played. Steelers just beat 2 playoff teams.
But I countered it by saying losing to those 3 teams in a row in only a 11-day period doesn't look as bad to me as the same ones with 7 days rest, et cetera, et cetera. It's just with the taste in your mouth at the moment.
I get it.
But like we do with power ranks, I mean, these teams aren't the same. Doesn't mean you'd beat Denver or San Diego now, or L.A. now. I haven't done that in 3 years or whatever. It doesn't mean you'd lose as bad to those 3 if you played them again. I mean, it's where you're at,
I understand it. Yeah. I get it. I mean, everybody has a bad taste in their mouth after they lose 3 in a row, but you lost 3 in a row to the best teams in the league.
Best teams in the league.
Is anybody discounting Green Bay? Is Green Bay a good team or not? Because they haven't beaten any of the good teams on their schedule.
For people that don't know, Green Bay has 5 losses: 2 versus the Vikes, 2 versus the Lions, and 1 versus the Eagles. I mean, that's the best teams in the NFC.
The 3 best teams that they played,
right.
They lost to them all, and 2 of them twice.
Yep, 2 of them twice in the division.
Their best win is one over the Seahawks.
Yep, who are the 5 hardest games you have? Well, that's their 5 losses.
Yeah.
So how good are you? And one of them was just last night, yesterday. Yeah. It's crazy. The other thing about the spread, though, I think the Steelers' rest advantage is huge.
I think it's massive.
I think it's huge. And I also love that they pick up a day going into the playoffs. The Ravens, who the Ravens playing again? But my Browns, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. They have
unlikely
yet another rest advantage over the Browns.
I'm sorry. The Ravens have yet another rest advantage, which we knew coming in.
Right, you knew that was
actually
happen.
one day less. But now they get a rest advantage, too, going into the playoffs, as if they haven't had enough all year. But it's likely them and the Steelers are the only ones that have 8 days rest. Well, they could put them on Saturday.
They could play Saturday.
Yeah. But at least they're 7 or more.
In fact, I would suggest that
I bet they will.
If the Steelers do play on Saturday against Houston, or do play Houston, it probably will be a Saturday.
Probably. I guess that makes sense.
In which case you would get the rest advantage.
Yeah.
Because Houston doesn't play until Sunday, but they're resting they're not playing anybody. Well, no, he came out today and said they were, because they want to get the bad taste out of their mouth.
Yeah, because they're playing terrible right now.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they were playing anyone, but
they got beat 31-2.
Yeah, horrible.
31-2.
So unless you play the Ravens, you're going to have a rest advantage in round 1.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where it stands right now.
Where it's at.
We'll see how this all goes, how it shakes out. Will the Steelers win? Will the Steelers lose? I haven't decided yet.
Yeah.
But Mike Tomlin did say today should get Joey Porter back.
That's great.
That's huge.
Where are we at in the injury world?
And Ben Skoranek should be back, which, while it doesn't sound like a lot, is actually pretty huge.
I think it's quite huge. I mean, I think he's a tremendous gunner / special teams player.
He might be the best special teams player on the team, and they've got a lot of good special teams players.
Is a Pro Bowl type guy, right? I mean, he's one of the core great ones. I'm also warming up. I think he's our 3rd best receiver. I mean, I think Pickens and Austin are the 2 that should be out there and 2 receiver sets. Next guy I trot out there, I think, is Skoranek.
I can't argue that.
Yeah,
I've been a Skoranek fan since his days with the Rams when he was, stepping in and replaced Cooper Kupp and looked a lot like Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I think he's better than the Boykins of the world that were special teamers that played some wide out. I mean, he's a good receiver.
So, anyways, let's get to a break here. We got to talk to Rob King after this, the voice of the Steelers. We'll do that when we return. He is Matt Williamson. I am the champ, Dale Lolley, and this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and we're joined on the Justin Miller hotline by the voice of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Rob King. And Kinger, before we started, I know you're a published author, Door in the Stone.
Oh, of course I am. Yes, I am.
Did you know I am the champion of the fantasy league in which Matt and I both participate in? I beat Matt in yesterday's championship game by 1 point.
By 1 point.
1 point.
1 point.
You probably saw it scrolling across the bottom at SportsCenter. I mean,
it was on NFL Network. It was on the NFL Network this morning.
Yeah. That story's hard to believe. That would be, you'd have to, I don't know, that's truth is stranger than fiction right there. Not that you would win, but you'd win by 1 point.
1 point.
1.0 points.
They gave me the sweep on Williamson this year. I beat him both times that we played. I beat him last year. He's never beaten me.
Really?
I'll believe you. I have no clue if that's true or not, but we'll go with it.
He's never beaten me.
Anyways, who's the deciding player for you?
Oh, for me it was T. Higgins.
That was the guy that blew up for him the most.
Went crazy. Just went crazy. And then, of course, the Steelers
leads us to the Bengals.
The Steelers are going to have to deal with said T. Higgins in this game. And interestingly enough, Robbie, he said he came out after the game last week. Of course, Cincinnati played at home. He said, "Well, if this was my final game, and in front of the Bengals fans, I made it a good one." Do you think that is his final game in front of the Bengals fans?
Works for me.
I wouldn't mind seeing him elsewhere.
He can come a little east if he wants.
Take a boat up the Ohio River.
I mean, I've thought of, is he the best number 2 receiver in the league? I think the other thing, whenever you have a guy like that, I suspect it probably is. his last game because there's only so many guys you can pay. And I think the big decision you'd have to make as another team is he a legitimate number one? Because I think someone's going to pay him like a number one. So is he a number one? Is he a strong number two?
He's a legit number one.
I think so. I think he's having his best year.
He's a legit number one.
I know he's had some injuries, but
Yeah.
I think this is the best he's played in his entire career, which is saying something because he's really good.
Yeah.
You know,
And if
every
he's a
step
legit
of the way.
number one, then he's going to get paid like a legit number one. And I don't know how a team can pay two guys like that and Joe Burrow. I don't know their salary cap situation, but
I mean, this is a different conversation. But you look at like the Eagles; they pull it off. I mean, you can do it.
Yeah.
But the problem is the Eagles don't need 8 new starters on defense.
Right. That's the big difference.
Right. If you drafted better and Miles Murphy was a star, then you could do it. But you got too many other holes.
Put it this way about for T. Higgins. T. Higgins' rookie year, 2020, before Jamar Chase got there, he had 67 catches, 908 yards, and 6 touchdowns on 108 targets. I think he would be just fine. And that was, again, his rookie year.
He was still not as good. Hadn't grown into his paws quite yet.
I think he would be a legit number one on most teams.
He looks like a Patriot or Charger to me.
Interesting.
Yeah, they both have the most.
That would be interesting.
They have like the most cap space in the league. Both those teams, right?
And the Chargers, there's a team that, wow.
Put him next to McConkey and
offense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, exactly. And they're like you said, they're a good candidate because the defense is already strong, and you've got another good receiver who's on a rookie deal, and will be on a rookie deal for was McConkey a second or a first?
Second, early
the
second.
first pick of the pick of the second round.
So then you get him for 3 more years, right?
Yep.
So that's probably that's it for T. Higgins.
Yeah.
All that being said, Rob, the last time these two teams faced off, and we're talking about December 1st here, Jamar Chase had 6 catches for 86 yards and a touchdown on 9 targets. T. Higgins had 5 for 69 and a touchdown on 10 targets. So you gave up 11 catches on 19 targets to those two guys as the Steelers' defense.
I think I'd take that. I'd run it back and be very thrilled with that.
Yep.
The key was in that neither one of them broke 100 yards. Like there wasn't, and that was with Chase had a 49-yard catch and run, if you remember that game late in the game. They did a nice job on those two studs in that first meeting, and it led to a I know the final score wasn't decisive, but it was a pretty decisive Steelers win.
It held the Bengals to 38 points.
Well, 31 legitimate points. Let's put it that way.
The pick six was a little suspect, right?
Right. They have a number of weapons. And Joe Burrow is playing so well right now. I mean, just so well. His game is as varied as his pregame outfits. My wife showed me a picture of his latest one. I'm usually the last to see those kind of things. I thought, wow, okay.
Why do you think the wives care so much about what Joe Burrow wears?
I think my wife just scrolled and found it.
Okay, I see.
I don't think she Googled Joe Burrow outfit. So
as far as you know,
you'll be getting frosted tips soon before you know it.
And I was sitting right next to her. Yes, maybe she was. Okay. I'm going to stop right there. So I will say this. I mean, he's a terrific player. This is a really dangerous team. To me, this is one of the best teams in the AFC, and they're not going to the playoffs. I don't think they're going to go to the playoffs.
Seems unlikely.
So, I mean, so much still has to go right for them to go to the playoffs. I think they're, again, maybe they may have to, look at why do they get off to such bad starts to begin a season and
that's pretty
what's
obvious.
going on there that needs to change.
Yeah. They make the same mistake every year. They don't play anybody in the preseason, and then they lose week 1 and 2 and wonder why. I mean, it's crazy to me.
You would think that would be reevaluated by the team, but it hasn't been yet. It's a really formidable team, a really good team.
Offensively.
Offensively, yeah. I mean, I would have a hard time seeing them running through the AFC playoffs. By the same token, I wouldn't want to have to beat them once either, and have them be the team that I have to get through to move on because so many things can go wrong in a game against them. They don't need that much room to beat you. So it's a really good test. And I also think that because it's a good quality opponent and because you've just lost to 3 good quality opponents in a row, and the scoreboard says rather lopsidedly, this is a good one to – and there's a lot of reasons for that. And I don't know whether we're going to get into that or not. But, you can – I think you can sort of recalibrate where you are by coming out and having a good, strong showing on Saturday night at home against the Bengals.
100%. And I haven't dug heavily into them. Not that you have to. We just saw them, and they haven't changed all that much. Burrow's real good. They have great receivers. Defense is bad, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, Chase Brown was, before he got injured in this past game, got every running back carry. And that's kind of almost been the norm. And it sure seems unlikely that he plays. I mean, I wonder what effect that has in this game. Do they throw the ball 80% of the time against the Steelers? I'm just curious. I'm just kind of spitballing here.
Well, I mean, they only ran the ball the first time around with the running backs 13 times.
And I bet he got like all of them.
He got 12 of the 13.
Okay, 12 of 13, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big loss for them overall, but I just wonder, will they just not even bother run the ball?
Well, he's a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing that they found out is that they were playing the wrong running back at the beginning of the year, too.
Yeah, you're right.
And Zach Moss is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But Chase Brown's
his injury made them better, kind of.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and again, was he maybe a little bit of the victim of the slow start as a team because of their history of starting slow and maybe not playing guys in the preseason? I don't know. But I do know this, that, I think Khalil Herbert's a pretty decent backup, not a lot of teams, I think, have a guy who's third on their depth chart who, of course, they went out and traded for him after the injury, but, a guy that's had, some pedigree of having good success. And he only has to be good once, he only has to be good for one game. He runs hard, he's a hard runner. He's more like Zach Moss, I think, than he is like, in that regard, than he is like Chase Brown. Not that Brown doesn't run hard, but Brown's got the speed and the quickness and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think he's more of a bull in a china shop type of runner, but he's a solid player. They've got good depth. They've got good offensive depth. Now, beyond Herbert, I mean, if you're getting down to Travion Williams, I don't know what the expectations would be there. But, that loss is a big one. And, again, sort of questionable clock management towards the end of that game. Did Brown even need to have that carry, before when he got hurt?
Highly questionable.
There were some questionable decisions. These teams that this growing trend of just passing up what seems like sure points now. He thought that chip shot was a sure pointer to sure win, and he missed it. But they had other opportunities earlier in the game, and they decided to go for it. And they're not the only ones. Teams out there, and all of a sudden you find yourself down 6. I mean, does it ever go through these guys' heads? Geez, if I'd kicked 2 field goals, we wouldn't actually be down by 6 right now. Regardless, I'm getting further adrift here from the actual topic, which is Chase Brown, and I think Herbert could do a nice job for him, but I don't think he's the same weapon out of the backfield and all that sort of
Here's
thing.
the one thing he doesn't do, Rob, and this could be a real issue for the Bengals this weekend, is he's not good in pass protection.
That's why the Bears kind of soured on him for that reason. Yeah, that's something.
And if you look at that game the last time around these two teams met, the Steelers sacked Burrow 4 times. They forced him to fumble twice, recovered both of them, and they just got after him. They also intercepted him once. That's the key to beating Joe Burrow. You look at the yardage, you go, oh, Burrow threw for 309 and 3 touchdowns, but he turned the ball over 3 times in that game.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys caught it, but in the Saturday game, Amarius Mims only lasted like 15 or 20
he
plays,
got hurt too.
and
Yeah.
it looked like he could be done. And the guy that they put in at right tackle, I'd never heard of.
Well, and those things. Now, again, Matt and I were talking on an earlier show, Dale, that, what happens if in these last 3 games
You cheating on me, man.
Najee Harris,
Heck yeah. I got a lot of lovers, dude.
doesn't.
Sorry.
Sorry,
when
Rob.
A guy's crowing about beating you in the fantasy league, I mean, I think that,
Gotta start looking out for
You
it.
should have heard
I
the
don't
smack talk coming out of this guy last week when he was favored in the game by like 10 points, and I
Really?
pulled off the upset, according to them, the experts
those
on
guys
it.
are-
Talking smack, Matt?
Yeah,
Matt, were you talking smack?
I just figured out I'll coach him.
that didn't.
That seems
happen.
like an obvious.
That didn't happen.
So anyway,
I forget what we were talking about. Something about the Steelers,
so you
probably.
look at these last 3 games and you think about, okay, the pitch to Najee, a chance to tie the game up, right? We don't know where they would have tied the game up. We don't know what would have happened after that, but a chance to get back in the game there. In Baltimore, it's a chance to take a lead when Russ Wilson, after 2 fumbles that don't go your way, when he fumbles inside the 5 and they pounce on it. Dubious call against Kansas City, right? Like you tie the game up. Actually, you take the lead because Boswell kicks the extra point, and you're up 14-13 at that point. And all these things that could have happened, should have happened. But now let's take a look at this from the Bengals' perspective. Okay, wipe out each of the defensive touchdowns. Burrow has been taking care of the football. You're probably, maybe looking at this game and saying, hey, listen, if he isn't strip sacked twice, we win this game easily, right? I mean, if I'm a Bengals fan, I might be thinking that.
Sure.
So I think that, there's some danger in us presuming that Burrow's going to be sacked 4 times and fumble twice.
I never assume that.
Rush,
I'm just saying.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I know. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying from the other how big were those in winning the game? Those are huge factors in your winning the game. What if those things don't happen? What if the pass rush doesn't get going? This is a big game for the Steelers. I think it's a big game for them, offensively and defensively. I think they need to get their mojo back. 3 weeks ago, going into the stretch of games, I did not think they were going to go 0-3. And I thought they were going to come out of it, and people were going to say, hang on a second now. What we thought the Steelers might be building into has been solidified, and this is a team that's going to be very dangerous in the playoffs. I think they need to get that feeling back. And the way you get that feeling back is by coming out, not having the 3 and outs on offense, maintaining the ball. That's another way to beat Joe Burrow is just don't let him have the ball. Win the time of possession, win it handily, and let the offense and defense play off each other. Don't lose the turnover battle. I think I'd like to see just, some good, solid football out of the Steelers. And frankly, I think it's kind of important that they do that.
That show we recorded earlier, we did with Wolf. We just kept coming back to time of possession. You got to get this defense off the field. No more 3 and outs. That's their style. You can't just be, have the defense out there for 35 minutes against Burrow and Mahomes and Hurts and these guys. You're going to lose all the time.
Right. I mean, if they had the ball 27 minutes, that's probably ample for them to put up some points.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to play keep away. I think you have to win that battle. And how do you win that battle? You're successful on 1st and 2nd down. Maybe you don't get to as many 3rd downs, or if you do, you make them 3rd and manageable. Every time you turn the ball over, as we've seen the last 3 games, turnovers or not creating turnovers has been a big part of the reason you've lost the time of possession battle. What you've done offensively to not help your defense out in Philadelphia. You start the game with 5 straight 3 and outs. Not only are you losing the time of possession battle, but you're wearing out your defense. So there just needs to be some complementary football. The things that we saw leading up to that stretch, the things that got you to 10-3, that's what I think we need to see more of Saturday night. I don't want to say regardless of the outcome, but I almost feel that way. I think a win would be important to this team, but I think playing a good football game would be important to this team too, and clearing up some of these things. Guys wide open in the secondary. I mean, that just can't happen. The 3 and outs, that can't happen either. So I think, sort of cleaning it and the turnover issues, cleaning some of these things up as you get ready for the playoffs. Because I still think it's a team that can get into the playoffs and not be coming home after 1 game. I really believe that. I really believe that they can do some damage in the playoffs, but you need to start regaining that feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, if you always talk about must-win games, look, man, the only game that's a must-win game is the one that gets you eliminated if you lose. But this feels like an important game to get you ready so that there isn't one and done come playoff time.
4-game losing streak would not be a wonderful way to enter into a road game in the playoffs, no matter who you're playing.
No, it wouldn't be.
No, I agree. And I think that's why it sounds like you both are on the same page I am. I'm playing my guys in this game. I'm not resting anybody. And I don't think Mike Tomlin will.
Oh, if you're the Steelers?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean regardless of what happens in the – so if Baltimore wins, obviously.
I mean, the Chargers still matter, though.
Put them first. Right, yeah, right. So you can if you win that game, you're no worse than the 5 seed, and you're going on the road to Houston, and away you go. Yeah. And that still might be a better path than having to go through Buffalo. I don't know. Who knows? We're going to find out when the playoffs start. The Chiefs are starting to look an awful lot like the Chiefs over the last couple of weeks. Look, I just think that you want to play well, and I agree with you, Dale. You want to play your starters. You want to get them out there. You want to get them with that good feeling. And listen, maybe if it doesn't mean that much, maybe you play them for a half and pull them if the half is that good. I don't know. Whatever decisions you make, I think that you want to go out there and try to win the game. I really do. Even if they play a great first half, I'm going to dismiss what I just said. I think even if you play a great first half, you want to get out there and try to win the game and go into the playoffs with that 3-game losing streak snap.
And you have an opportunity to knock the Bengals out of the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, it's a division foe. It's a team that you're going to have to continue to deal with down the road. Even if T. Higgins isn't there, you're still going to be dealing with Burrow. You're still going to be dealing with Chase. And you don't want to give up anything to those teams. You don't want to have them saying, oh, we went to Pittsburgh last year and won.
No, there's definitely value to ruining their season, being the last nail in the coffin, right?
Absolutely. And you know what else would be lovely too? I mean, look, every little bit counts, So if the Bengals, let's say the Bengals win this game but don't get into the playoffs, what are they going to be feeling about themselves? Hey, man, we won 5 in a row. We're close. We're going to go into the off season and we're in good position. We're ready to go. Hey, you lose that game to the Steelers when you needed it to get in. I don't think you're having that good feeling about your season. Now it's a season that, you can talk away, why you didn't make the playoffs. Well, we got off to a slow start. We got a little bit of bad luck, blah, 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 blah. I mean, their record in one-score games, what are they, 3-7 in one-score games? Now, they're 2-0 in their last 2. But at one time, they were 1-7 in one-score games. I mean, it was just a Murphy's Law laundry list of reasons that they lost. And they can look back at that. I think if they end this season on a 5-game winning streak, they can look back and just say, man, we just had plain bad luck, a couple changes in practices, and we are every bit as good as everybody thought. You come to Pittsburgh and lose on Saturday night, it's going to be a little more difficult to say that if you're the Bengals.
Absolutely. Well, our guest has been Rob King, published author, The Door and the Stone. There you go.
Makes a wonderful 2025 gift.
Yeah, birthdays, bar mitzvahs, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
There you go. Kinger, we'll let you
guys.
go. And always appreciate you stopping by. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. And welcome back to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And this is, of course, as I just said, The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And, of course, you can hear The Drive every Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. During the season. And we'll continue on throughout the postseason and, well, into free agency and all that fun stuff, too. You can also download the Steelers mobile app, and it will download the show directly onto your phone. And you can also watch on our YouTube channel, which we appreciate. And, like that as well. And, Matt, one of the things that Rob said there is something I wanted to touch on from watching 87 NFL games over the last 6 days. We saw a lot of teams in some moments do stuff that they probably shouldn't have done that was kind of outside the norm in terms of going for it on fourth downs, passing up field goals to go for it on fourth downs and things of that nature. The Bengals being one of those teams, The Bengals they attempted to go on fourth down 3 times in their win over the Broncos.
Yeah, I made note of that too when I was watching.
And they only made one of them. And that kept Denver in that football game.
And you wonder if it was week 4, would you be doing that?
Right. You wouldn't.
It's an elimination game for the Bengals. Right.
Which I get.
Right.
But why would you coach that any differently than what you normally do when when you've been winning? Some of the
best way to win the game, same in week 4 or an elimination game. Whatever that is.
I put it out there yesterday when I'm watching Green Bay, Minnesota. Green Bay is down 7-3. They've got a 4th and 2 from about from the Minnesota. It's inside the 25. 4th and 2. You're down 7-3 early in the second quarter, and they went for it and didn't get it, and then lose the game by 2.
Lose the game by 2. Right.
Like, don't do things like that to lose yourself the game. Now you're chasing points the rest of the day.
And again, is that something that Green Bay is like? Boy, we already lost to the Vikes. This is a huge game. We got to act differently, or would they do that against the Raiders in Week 7 or whatever? I don't know. But I do think, as much as I love analytics, and analytics is such a broad term, turning down points or close to sure points,
especially in the first half of a game,
early in a game, where it's not like you're down 14-0 and it's time you're in trouble and you can't stop anybody. I mean, it's a pretty equal, neutral script great game at that point.
7-3.
I bet the more people evaluate that, and it'll come around. You know, the analytics folks will be like, just kick it. You know what I mean? It just doesn't always add up.
Yeah, I just made mental note of that as I was watching that, as you did with the Bengals. I'm like, why are they going for this one? Like, don't panic here.
Mm-hmm.
And it tells me also that Zach Taylor doesn't trust his defense. He doesn't. He knows they can't hold anybody.
And I would think they're going to take the same approach against Steelers.
Yeah.
And this is a playoff game that he's going to coach aggressively. And again, he's always, and I get it, I would always trust Burrow over that defense, of course. But I would assume the Steelers should expect that. You know, like,
you got to go into this and expect it.
I mean, maybe not without Chase Brown, but I always talk about this with the Lions. Like, 3rd and 7 is a rundown for them because they know they're going to go for it. You know, so that in itself can be an advantage. Doesn't mean that you always, convert it on 4th.
Yeah, I guarantee, when Mike Tomlin and his coaching staff are watching this game, that's something that they realize, like, hey, these guys are just going to go.
They're going to go,
regardless.
They're going to put everything on Burrow's back.
Yeah.
That's why I was talking to Rob, just dawned on me, like, with the running back injury, I mean, and I get it. I don't even think it's a bad philosophy. T, Chase, Joe, if we win this thing, you guys had your best days and everyone else is along for the ride. And it's kind of what they've been doing anyway,
To a large degree, but Chase Brown he had like 100 yards in like 5 consecutive sixes. He had 100 total yards against the Steelers.
Yeah, he's been a good player for him, for sure.
And taking that out of the equation, I think dramatically affects how the Steelers will defend the Bengals.
I also wonder, just watching that game, there's a lot of Gesicki early, which...
Too much Gesicki.
Yeah,
my goodness.
I 100% agree. And I'm sure some of it was a Surtain thing. They were really going after Moss, heavy, coming back from injury. And I think he was in and out of that game from what I remember. And I don't think they're ever going to not go at Chase. I mean, if Chase is going against Rod Woodson or Mel Blount, they're going to throw him the ball. But I do think it was a heavier Gesicki game plan than usual. Is that something that's here to stay for the against Steelers or not? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just one more thing that you have to be cognizant of here. But the ball...
But I'll let him beat me before Higgins and Chase. I mean,
if
he has a huge day, great,
Yeah, because the ball really doesn't go anywhere else for them.
No.
If you look back at that game, Higgins...
They need a third receiver.
Yeah.
Yoshevich is okay.
Higgins had 12 targets. Chase had 15 targets. Gesicki had 12.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next closest guy was 4. You had Yosivas with 4, and you had Chase Brown with 4. If that's how you're going to play, you're making it pretty easy much easier. Like, it's not easy. You still have to defend Higgins and Chase, but you make it much more.
This is so condensed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way the first game went against the Steelers. If you even if you look at that one,
I think even more so now with Chase Brown probably out of the equation.
Yeah, it was 9 targets for Chase, 10 targets for Higgins, and then Gesicki had 5. Yosivas had 4. Tanner Hudson had 4. Have at that all day long. And Drew Sample had 2. Like, those guys aren't going to beat you.
No. And it's a small percentage. But so one of the things I always do in the stat pack is look at personnel groupings of, how teams are attacking defenses and what they're putting out there on both offense and defense, what percentages. And during the Taylor era in Cincinnati, they've always been like first or second in 11. 11. And they're not. And they're kind of like 14th or something. It wasn't even worth noting. They weren't extreme one way or another. Kind of middle of the road to a little bit high, but not crazy.
Well, the thing is, I mean, you can look at Gesicki and say he has a T.
That's what
he has a T next to his name, but he doesn't block anybody.
He's closer to Tyler Boyd than he is Rob Gronkowski, obviously. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So they're using him as that third receiver in a big way. And the other thing, it was a small percentage, but they're at the very top of the league and not having a running back on the field at all, either like 0-2 or 0-1 personnel. I wonder if they even rev that up more because their best running back's out.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it over,
don't even hide it. Like we're not running here.
Course of his career, and he played a good bit for Chicago. Khalil Herbert's career high for catches is 20.
Yeah, it's Sounds about right. Yeah.
He's gotten 1 target in a Bengal uniform. He had 2 targets earlier this year with Chicago. He's got three catches for 11 yards this season. Like, he's not a receiving threat out of the backfield.
Well, to your earlier point, because he's not out there on passing downs because he's bad in protection.
Yeah.
You know, he can get steamrolled in protection. He's a short arm guy. He's a rounder body type. He's not built like Najee, and he's just not all that great in protection. So that was a big reason, and they even highlighted it when they made the draft pick of Roschon Johnson. This guy is great in protection, special teamer. He was the backup to Bijan at Texas, and then all of a sudden Herbert just fell off a cliff and they traded him for nothing.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes.
He's an okay ball carrier.
Yeah, right. Let's get to another break. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of the drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with hour number 2 right after this. And welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, it is now time for the Fantasy Football Focus. I'm the champion. But our DFS lineup yesterday performed quite well. We finished 9th overall in the bracket that we were in with 174.22 points.
Could any Lions screw us up tonight or anything?
No, we're locked. We didn't have the Monday night game.
Monday night in that game. Okay.
That was just Saturday-Sunday matchup that we did on Friday. We had Bryce Young in the lineup, 16.92 points, only 8.8% ownership. We had Bucky Irving in the lineup. Well, 50.9% of the people have Bucky Irving in the lineup. Whoever's playing the Panthers goes into the lineup, and he had 26 points. Could have had so much more.
Could have, yeah.
I mean,
yesterday was rookie day in the NFL too, or fantasy rookie day they were all on fire.
Huge.
But he's been great.
Speaking of which, Tyrone Tracy was in the lineup at 7% ownership. Didn't blow up, but had 9.3 points.
Fine, yeah.
Mike Evans, who we pivoted to when we switched to the Browns defense. That's why you check out the YouTube channel, because I put that on there.
Ah, did you? Nice.
I did, to let everybody know that we were making that adjustment. We switched to Mike Evans when we went to the Browns defense, which saved us some money.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Evans.
When Tua was ruled out.
Yeah. Mike Evans, 8 for 97 and 2 touchdowns. 29.7 points, 17.5% ownership.
Love it.
Adam Thielen, 31 points. He was 16.7% ownership and was a solid play at $5,700. Calvin Ridley at $5,500, 14.1 points. He had 5 catches for 84 yards and 7 yards rushing. Payne Durham.
That was a nice pickup, yeah.
Payne Durham, 8.8% ownership, $2,900. We get 11.6 points out of Payne Durham. 2 catches for
Baker
36 yards and a touchdown.
That's big.
Jonathan Taylor, 30.6 points at 32.5% ownership. That's who we had in the flex. He was extremely good.
Yeah.
And then the Browns defense got us 5 points on $2,400 expenditure on the defense.
Yeah, so that's a nice winner there.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
And we pivoted off the Titans defense, I believe, and they were bad.
They were bad, yeah.
Yeah. So that worked out well.
Yeah, it was huge.
So another winner for us. We've been on a little bit of a roll there.
Streak here, I think, right?
Yeah. Kind of like my fantasy team, kind of on a roll.
Interesting.
1 point. Looking at this week's top performers. It's kind of all over the place this week.
Weird week, of course.
7 players threw for 300 yards.
Okay.
Joe Burrow had 412 and 3 touchdowns. He got sacked 7 times in that game.
Oh, I know. Their line's a bit of shambles right now.
He was under siege.
More over the week, but right tackle went out. They got some issues.
Yeah. Orlando Brown Jr.
He's probably their best guy.
Yeah.
And it's not great.
He had 412 and 3 touchdowns. Sam Darnold, 377, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception in that win over Green Bay. Baker Mayfield, 359 and 5 touchdowns.
He's on fire.
Let Bucky Irving score one of those. Joe Flacco, 330 and 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
Was far from great, though.
A fumble, yeah. He was not. He was. This was the same stuff that Flacco was doing last year in Cleveland, though.
Oh, he's very Jameis Winston-esque at this stage of his career. Like, I don't think he even cares at this point. Like, I'll just retire or not or whatever.
Yeah. Kyler Murray had 321, but only 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, was sacked 4 times. Not been a great year for him.
It has not been a great year for him. Like, I'm sure they're going to go into next year with him and all that, but they can't be super thrilled with their quarterback situation.
No. Patrick Mahomes, 320 and 3 touchdowns against the Steelers. Drew flippin' Lock.
Colt Steed needs to be embarrassed, ashamed of themselves.
309 and 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks, no fumbles.
Yeah.
They took a goose egg in a game against the Giants.
Yeah, yeah. And he played well, though. I mean, any of these guys are capable of having a day, and he had a day.
It was a lot of catch and run.
Neighbors, a ton of, right. And they knew where they're going with football, and just a bad defense.
Yeah.
They should make I'm not saying they should make a head coaching change, but they need to make a defense coordinator change.
Justin Herbert just missed. He had 281 and 3 touchdowns. Aiden O'Connell, 242 and 2 touchdowns. So it drops off considerably after those top 10 performances. And then Jaden Daniels last night, 227 and 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. There's your difference right there.
And the rushing is huge for him.
Was sacked 5 times. If you didn't throw that interception, we're tied.
Oh, there's lots of what ifs.
That's all you got to deal with now the rest of the offseason.
I'll be able to sleep at night.
Looking at the rushing leaders for this week, we had 7 100-yard rushers. Saquon Barkley, 31 for 167, no touchdowns. Derrick Henry, 27 for 147 and a touchdown. Jaden Daniels had 16 for 127, no touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor, 32 for 125 and 2 scores. Amir Abdullah had 20 for 115.
Yeah, I think he had a big play called back, too.
Yeah, his long run that counted was 17 yards. It was just pretty systematic against that New Orleans defense.
I'd say Saints are really a shot, too. I mean, they might be – the Giants won. Are Saints 32 in the power ranks today, if you were to redo it, if we're going to do it tomorrow?
Might throw the Jets in there.
Jets are pretty pathetic,
really
too.
bad.
There's some bad teams. New England's horrendous, too.
Bucky Irving, 20 for 113. You had Rico Dowdell with 23 for 104. He did lose a big fumble, though.
Yeah,
really.
I'd say that was a lot of empty calories there.
Yeah. Tyjae Spears just missed at 20 for 95. Bijan had 17 for 90 and 2 scores, most of that coming in the first half of that game.
Yeah, he looked great.
Then they kind of ignored him in the second half. And then Lamar Jackson had 4 for 87 and a touchdown.
So 2 quarterbacks in there.
Yeah. Never hurts to have that.
No.
Receivers, you had 12 100-yard receivers. Malik Neighbors led the way, 7 for 171 and 2 scores. T. Higgins, 11 for 131 and 3 scores.
Huge.
Puka Nacua, 10 for 129 but didn't score.
I wonder how high Puka goes in drafts next year. There's not many receivers I'm taking over him that aren't named Chase or Jefferson.
Yeah. Trey McBride had 12 for 123 and a score.
Scored. Got in the end zone.
Got in the end zone.
Yeah.
Alec Pierce, 6 for 122 and a touchdown.
Okay.
Benefited from the Flacco experience.
Yeah.
Devonta Smith, 6 for 120 and 2 scores.
Scored twice, too, yeah.
Adam Thielen, 5 for 110 and 2 scores.
Been solid.
Michael Pittman, 9 for 109 and a touchdown.
He finally looks healthy. Too little too late for the Colts
Yeah.
or for your fantasy team probably, but
Drake
he's
London?
a free agent after the year.
Pittman?
I think so.
No, they signed him before the season started.
That was
remember?
this year?
Yeah.
I was thinking it was 2 years ago to a 2-year deal.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Drake London, 7 for 106. Tyreek Hill, 9 for 105, didn't score. Marvin Mims Jr. against that Cincinnati defense had 8 for 103 and 2 touchdowns.
One of them was like the longest play of the year, though. I mean, it was bombs away.
51 yards, but still, they gave it up.
Oh, they gave it up. Yeah, they always do. Mims has come on a little bit. I think they're pretty happy with him.
Chase had 9 for 102, didn't score. Mike Evans just missed with the 8 for 97 and 2 touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr. just missed with 6 for 96. You had Jerry Jeudy at 12 for 94, 7.8 yards per catch.
Oh.
Ladd McConkey, 8 for 94 and 2 touchdowns, was solid. Justin Jefferson, 8 for 92 and didn't score. So there's some guys on it. Brian Thomas, 7 for 91.
Yeah, another big game for him.
And a touchdown. To your point, Gesicki had 10 for 86 in that game.
Yeah. Seemed like a lot of it early, but
yeah.
He is their third receiver.
Yeah. He's their
slot.
The slot. He should just have a slot WR next to his name.
Anybody.
No, ever. So that's the top performers from this week, and
pretty solid.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of the dance who brung you guys.
Yeah.
Not a lot of crazy from left field, guys.
So congratulations if you won your championship. If you're playing again this week, I got to ask the question, why?
Yeah, I say it's bonkers to me. I'm sure some people are waiting on the Lions tonight too, though.
Yeah, there's
probably
quite a few, and this is a game that if you got Lions going, fire them up.
I assume they'll play the whole time.
Fire up Kittle.
They said they're going to. I wouldn't if I were the Lions. I mean, I would rest everything for next week, but it's not how they're wired.
They're going to win this game. Well, I guess they could lose this one, but
yeah, it doesn't mean a thing to them.
Yeah, but you still
short week to go play for the division title next week.
Could they
already play him a half? I mean, I think he said we're just going full systems go. But
does it matter if they lose because Philly won?
No, I think all that matters is their game next week for the division title.
Okay,
and that ends up being the 1 seed too. So
yeah.
It really means 0.
I mean,
but you already have them in your lineup. You're stuck with these guys.
Yeah,
it's not like you're gonna pull St. Brown out.
At this point, I'm sure Dan Campbell's looking at this going, we can't. There's nobody else on defense that can get hurt because all of our good players are hurt.
Yeah.
So
I just think it's his mentality that we're going to grind and bite
this is a team that came back on them in last year's NFC Championship.
Oh, they're going to run the score up on them like crazy, I think.
Speaking of that, and I texted you this earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
Everybody looks at Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan's a great coach, right? Great coach.
Yeah.
I see Steeler fans all the time. Why don't we get a Kyle Shanahan type?
Kyle Shanahan is insane, yeah.
This is his 8th season now in San Francisco. This is his 4th losing season in San Francisco.
Yep.
With all that talent that they have, they still have losing seasons.
They had one where they got Bosa with the 2nd overall pick. They were like one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's been – and they haven't won the big one. I mean, they've won a lot of games, and their great seasons are great but not quite good enough.
Not quite great enough.
Yeah. And this year there's a lot of excusable things. But next year –
you shouldn't be 6-9. There's no excuse for that.
No, they're better than that. I mean, you would think next year they're going to look different. I mean, I don't think Trent Williams will play football again.
No, I don't think so either.
All he's gone through and shutting it down at this stage, and he's old and he wasn't quite as good this year. You got to play Purdy. You got to pay Purdy. So they may not be favorites in their own division, going forward either.
Yeah.
But I have heard some Niner fans that aren't thrilled with Shanahan too. I mean, he's not a great game manager. He's a tremendous offensive mind.
Yeah.
But I don't know that he's like him and McVay are always like neck and neck, and I'd much rather have McVay as my head coach. I don't think they're even close.
Yeah, I would agree.
Head coach,
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I thought he's got a 500 career record.
Is that where he's at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he's like 3 games over.
Okay. It doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah. I mean, so be careful what you ask for.
Mm-hmm.
You'd like if
he's had some high moments.
You can criticize Mike Tomlin, and he's certainly open to criticism.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't won playoff games and all that stuff, but they're in contention every year.
Oh, it's really hard to pull off.
Really hard to pull off. Extremely difficult. You don't have a bad season every other year and get yourself a top 10 draft pick, and then look, we got this. Well, that's nice because you had a top 10 draft pick.
Yeah, and yes, the Niners have had a tough year in terms of injuries and all these things, but it's not like Tomlin never has.
Right.
I mean, he said you lose your quarterbacks and things like that too.
So, but
there you have it.
Yeah, so hopefully your fantasy championship is locked up. If not,
is this our last fantasy segment for a while?
We can still do DFS.
I mean, we'll definitely should do some playoff stuff.
We'll start digging more, looking more towards draft type stuff and things of that nature moving forward, which I've already started doing some homework on. But I had a lot of free time on watching 87 consecutive hours of NFL football.
It's been a lot.
Just sit there with the laptop and look up different guys. Like, oh yeah, I like that guy. I like that guy. Guys I saw on TV. Like what's his prognosis on this guy? Because guys stand out too.
Oh no, it's starting to be heavy draft season. We got college playoffs a bunch of these nights too, and there'll be guys to highlight there too.
Absolutely. But let's get to another break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley, the champion, and. Well, this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And Matt, because the game has been moved to Saturday night or been placed on Saturday night here against the Bengals upcoming, 8 o'clock. That's what the Steelers schedule now says.
Yep.
Mike Tomlin held his press conference today.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier in the show, it looks like they're going to get Ben Skoranek and Joey Porter Jr. back for this one, so
Right.
relatively healthy for the Steelers coming into this one.
Quite healthy, it seems like. I mean, is there anyone we're worried about? I mean, I know injury reports aren't out or anything, but it's
No.
a nice long break. I mean, it looks like some the usual guys.
Yeah.
And you think they play everyone as if this is a playoff game. I mean, unless fourth quarter gets weird. I mean, who knows? But I would think you're going to go crazy on it. Skoranek to me is very valuable. I think Porter's remarkably valuable. And some things I was looking at today, the next-gen stuff that came out already for previewing this game, doesn't shock me. But in attempts 2.5 seconds or less, Burrow's clearly the best in the league. I mean, he's number one. And we saw Mahomes, how well he did that. And frankly, the Steelers' defense is the worst in the league in terms of pass attempts under 2.5 seconds. Well, what do you think you're going to get?
They see it more than anybody
They
else.
see it a ton because of the pass rush, and the corners are suspect, and they've not done well against it. So they better get used to it. I mean, since he has success or not, whoever the first-round opponent is going to attack them, as people have. I mean, that's kind of Rook's book on them right now. And I think Porter's the most important guy to stop that. I mean, you can at least press Higgins or Chase, and if you get beat over the top, so be it. But it's a lot harder to get it out in 2.5 against press man.
Yeah. Tackle the catch.
Tackle the catch and just disrupt the route, just the timing of it all.
This was the game where everybody was complaining about Joey Porter Jr., if you remember, because he had some penalties in this game working against T. Higgins for the most part. And as Mike Tomlin said after the game, you're going to get penalties. If you don't disrupt T. Higgins, he goes for 11 for 130 and 3 touchdowns like he did against Denver.
Oh, yeah, right.
Like
he's a hard guy to disrupt, too. But
he's the guy they look to in the end zone, in the red zone.
Chase gets everything,
Chase gets a lot. Chase gets more of the stuff down the middle of the field until they work down. When they get into the red zone, Burrow tries to throw fades or anything like that.
Oh, that's Higgins stuff.
It's Higgins all day.
No doubt.
Chase beats you off the line of scrimmage and maybe gets you on a crosser in the end zone. Higgins is just go up and be big.
Yeah. Sideline stuff. I mean, he's a definite style of receiver, and he's really taken it to a new level, too. And I've never seen him in person, but a couple of guys over here, TV, I remember mentioned it, that seeing him in person was, whoa, he's a bigger man than you think, too. I mean, a bigger, physical, stronger, longer, small forward-looking dude, And the other thing I saw in the next-gen stats comes to mind just along these lines, too, is not only does Chase have the most yards after the catch in the entire league this year, it's the most of any receiver in 3 years. He is the middle of the field, get him in motion.
It's a lot of that short stuff. Get him the ball quickly and let him try to make somebody miss a tackle.
And he's good at it. Right. Not that he can't get downfield or, post someone up in the end zone too, but they're very different stylistically. Yeah,
for sure. Of course, Mike Tomlin was asked about some of the communication issues that the Steelers had over this 3-game stretch. And I might add that I'm watching other games. Watched a lot of football in the last, NFL games. And I always get the question, why does this only happen to the Steelers?
Whatever the next part of the question is, it doesn't only happen.
It doesn't. I'm watching multiple games over the last few days where you're like, that was a communication issue. And then you hear the announcer come on, they had a communication issue there. Well, yeah, that's how guys get open in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody just flat out beats somebody off the snap. It happens very rarely where you just get beaten.
Schemed up and in particular the Steelers, we were talking about on that show that Rob referenced with Wolf and I, that Wolf was like, and he's an O-lineman, but he's a football player. He's like, man, the route combinations watching from the booth that the Chiefs were using, motioning a third guy into a bunch or a group to the wide side of the field. He's like, I don't know how anyone deciphers that stuff. I'm like, well, they're the best in the league in it, but boy, it is challenging because it's happening now, and they're all coming out of a bunch, and it's like, like they're all going every which direction at once.
Yeah,
it's really difficult.
Somebody just pulled the fire alarm, and everybody's running a different
every
way.
little kid in the elementary school, and you got to figure out, you got to cover them all.
Yeah,
right.
As we mentioned with Rob, Mike Tomlin said he is not sitting anybody in this game.
Okay.
That
Yeah,
you got to go.
Systems go. Yeah,
you got to go and treat this. You just got your mini bye.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. I mean, you do get a little bit of energy, a little bit of refresh to the bones there, and emotionally too. he would never admit this, nor should any head coach, but I'd much rather go to Houston than Baltimore next year. Or next week.
Well, next year, too.
Any which way, probably.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I want to be the 5 seed if you can't be the 3. If Baltimore wins, I don't want to be the 6. I want to be the 5. I mean, I think that gives you the best chance to advance, and, that's smart to me.
At the same time, you split with the Ravens this year. It's not like and again, you were in that game.
Yeah.
I know you lost 34-17, but you were in that game late into that game before it kind of got away from you with the pick 6. So either way, I'm with you. I would prefer to go to Houston.
Houston's just got a lot of issues right now.
They're in a much worse situation right now, and injuries and all that kind of stuff. But it's not like you haven't shown you. I mean, you've won 8 of the last.
Won in Baltimore.
You've won 8 of the last 10 against Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. That didn't evaporate after one game.
No, that one game doesn't fix that. Doesn't cure it.
No, I just think Houston's really limping into the playoffs right now.
Yeah.
Not to mention their biggest issues are O-line stuff that the Steelers would thrive against.
Well, that brings me, you said limping into the playoffs. That brings me to a point. I tweeted something out last week, and somebody said, well, the Steelers are backing into the playoffs. No, they're not backing into the playoffs. They clinched a playoff spot 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. They're not backing into the playoffs. Backing into the playoffs would be what would happen if Denver lost this week and Cincinnati and Miami both lost.
Yeah.
The Broncos will be backing into the playoffs.
That you need someone to. And that's happened to Steelers before. You're waiting for Jacksonville or whoever to win or lose, and then you get in where it's not. You don't control your own, path.
You don't control the situation.
Right,
You're just
right.
hoping for other things to happen. The Steelers are in the playoffs and have been in the playoffs for the better part of a month.
Mm-hmm.
They earned that over the course of the season, and what you said earlier about the situation here. I mean, if you look at the Bengals' schedule from this season, you can look at their schedule, and there's some similarities there to what happened to them. And
you mentioned a rough patch they had. They had a 5-game stretch there where their only win was the Raiders.
So they lost their first 3 games of the season. Lost to the Patriots, lost to the Chiefs, lost to the Commanders.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Patriots was opening day?
Yeah. They come back and they beat the Carolina Panthers.
Okay. That's when Young was getting benched and they were terrible too.
They then lose to the Baltimore Ravens to fall to 1-4. So they lost 3 out of 4 there.
Yeah.
Then they come back and they beat the Giants. They beat the Browns. Now they're 3-4. Then they lose to the Eagles.
Yeah.
Got smoked at home by the Eagles, by the way, 37-17.
Yeah, so they got crushed in that game. Yeah.
Then they beat the Raiders. Come back and beat the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Next 3
this
games.
is where it gets bad, yeah.
Lose to Baltimore, lose to the Chargers. They have their bye week, and they lose to the Steelers. So 3 losses in a row to 3 playoff teams. 4 out of 5 if you look at the game against the Eagles that they lost to playoff teams.
And a 6-week stretch where your only win is the Raiders. I know one's a bye, you can't get them, but still it's a month and a half where your only wins are against the Raiders.
So, this 4-game winning streak that they have against Dallas, Tennessee, Cleveland, and Denver, well, yeah, it looks good, and it's good for them. They started the season slowly. They had a really bad stretch in the middle of the season where they lost 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
And now they've beaten up on some teams that
it's not a murderer's row.
It's not no.
Right. Denver's a nice win.
Yeah, Denver's a nice win there, but this is not a team that is barnstorming its way into the playoffs here.
Yeah, I think there's a misconception that, hey, I've said this and I'll stand by it. I don't want to see Burrow in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean,
rather have him sitting at home watching.
Dangerous.
Yeah,
but they're not the cliche team that if they get in, they're the team no one wants to play. No, I mean, I don't think
every
Baltimore
offensive coordinator is looking
Buffalo.
at that going, yeah, I wouldn't mind facing that defense as opposed to Denver's.
Right. I'm not sure if they're better or worse than Denver or the Chargers, but they're not the team that, oh, man, I hope they don't get in because they're going to win it all. I mean, no, they've got issues.
This is what their defense has given up this year. Okay, 290 against New England, but it was 290 against New England.
New England's about as bad offense there is in the league right now.
They only gave up 286 against the Chiefs in week 2. But then they gave up 356, 375, 520 to the Ravens. That was against the Ravens. 309 against the Giants. That's not great.
No.
336 against the Browns. They won that game. 397 against the Eagles. They held the Raiders to 217. That was when they weren't even starting O'Connell at that point.
Okay.
389 to the Ravens. 435 to the Chargers, 520 to the Steelers. They've given up over 500 yards twice.
Brutal.
322 to the Cowboys, 374 to the Titans. 374 to the Titans.
Yeah.
Like,
not great.
no.
That's recently.
273 to the Browns with DTR.
Mm-hmm.
And then 329 against the Broncos on Saturday night. I mean, there's
How many was that one? 329, you said?
yeah.
Okay.
There's some outlier games there where they gave up, 217 to the Raiders and things like that.
Yeah.
It's been a bad defense all season long.
All season long. And nothing got fixed from last year. And it goes back to last year. I mean, remember that everyone blamed the safeties, and they're going to sign Geno Stone and bring back Von Bell and get back to being a top defense. It's been arguably the worst defense in the league.
Now,
start to finish.
Yeah, the one thing that it has done during this little 4-game winning streak here, two turnovers forced.
That's a good point.
Against Dallas.
Some, yeah.
6 against the Titans. They turned the Titans over 6 times and won 37-27.
Yeah, against a bad football team.
Against a bad football team. They turned the Browns over 3 times.
I think they had 6 sacks in that game, too. It's the only game they've had a lot of sack production.
And the Broncos turned it over one more time in that one. So
they have created some big plays.
They've created some plays here, and that's kind of helped them win some of these games because before that they were about a 500-ish turnover ratio team.
Yeah. No, that has been better. And you can kind of live that way, and they're proving it. They've won 4 in a row. That if you have an elite offense and a bad defense that at least makes splash plays, sacks, and turnovers, okay, you'll be in games against good teams. That's a hard way to live, but it's a heck of a lot better than just getting steamrolled on defense time and time again.
Yeah. So,
but there's nothing I'm worried about with the defense avoid or anything like that.
Again, when coming out of that game against the Bengals, when the Steelers put up 520 yards of offense and put 44 points on the board, nobody was talking about, this offense really stinks. They can't do it. That was the exact opposite. Wow, look at this offense. This gives them a chance to win. Now you've gone and you played 3 really good football teams and you've lost to those teams.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden the offense stinks.
Yeah. I actually think, from an optimistic point of view, there's a couple things on offense that are trending the right direction.
Absolutely.
First off, the running game. And I'll be the first to admit that the last series that Najee had, he gained like 40 or 50 yards against nobody. But if you take that out.
But they were running the ball well.
They ran the ball well in
yeah.
that game. The running game, I think, is trending up. Now, it needs to keep going. I mean, that's going to be your foundation. But I think Warren looks great, and the O-line's been fine, and the blocking's been fine. And part of it's because Pickens was out, but I still think Austin and Freiermuth are trending up.
Yeah.
And clearly Warren is. I mean, that kind of goes hand in hand with the run game. But if you can cut down on the sacks and you can get Pickens back to being a productive like he usually is, I don't think the offense all of a sudden is, that's the Matt Canada offense. Just like we said, no. Right. I mean, this isn't it's better than what we've been used to by far.
Well, and that's a valid point that you bring up there. So if you think back to it, George Pickens played in the game against the Bengals, tore them up.
Yeah.
Didn't play the next week against the Browns. That was he got hurt
right
on Thursday
game,
and didn't play. Didn't play against the Eagles. Came back didn't play against the Ravens. Missed those 3 games.
Yeah.
Came back and played against the Chiefs. But he came back and played against the Chiefs. They had 1 practice.
Oh, right. I mean, he didn't practice all week and then didn't play. Right.
This has been a situation where now he should be fully healed from everything.
So, yeah.
He's going to get practice time to work with Russell Wilson on the timing, because you lose some of your timing over a month when you don't play. And I expect him to go out and tear up the Bengals.
I would be shocked if he doesn't, and I'd be shocked if Wilson doesn't.
Yeah.
I think Wilson has a good game here. If you look at, we're not going to do it, but if you were to rank all the 53 active roster Steelers, who benefits the most from this long week, I think Wilson's near the top of the list. I think Pickens is absolutely near the top of the list. The injured guys, Porter, Skoranek. I'm sure Cam is great as he's playing, and he was really, really good in the past game too, even against the Chiefs. I'm sure his older body is pretty happy about the break.
Yeah.
Any
of the older guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you remember that first matchup against the Bengals, Najee Harris had 6 catches for 54 yards. Cordell Patterson had 3 for 37, and Jaylen Warren had 4 for 55. Warren only had 3 carries for 9 yards in that game.
Yeah.
That was like the last time that they really didn't use him as a runner because they were just having so much success throwing the ball on first downs.
On first downs, right.
I
would hope, I would assume the Bengals are going to not have the same game plan. Yeah, remember all those running back middle of the field,
wide open all day
wide
long.
open or hit you, and
Freiermuth had 6 for 68 in that game, and a touchdown.
A lot of over the middle stuff. Tampa 2, the linebackers running deep downfield, and you just throw it to Warren.
I just think that's who they are.
Yeah, I can't imagine they're going to give that up as easily. But that means they're going to.
That means you're going to give up
else.
something deep to Pickens in.
Possibly. But right, I can't imagine. Their running back receiving production against is really bad. But man, that was almost crazy.
That was
like,
stealing.
how does that not? How do you not make an adjustment during the game?
Yeah, that was stealing in that game.
Yeah,
because Harris had his 6 catches on 6 targets. Patterson had his 3 catches on 3 targets.
They're all easy completions.
And Warren had his 4 catches on 4.
They were like 4 yards.
You were
downfield,
13
right?
for 13 for over 100 yards, just tossing the ball to the running backs.
Extended handoffs past the line of scrimmage with not a line of scrimmage worth of people to break tackles from.
The most incompletions in that game, really, they were 3. He was 3 for 6 targeting Pickens. Pickens had 3 catches for 74 yards and a touchdown. Everybody else, Freiermuth had 6 catches on 7 targets. Van Jefferson 1 for 3. All right. Calvin Austin 2 for 2. Skoranek was 1 for 1. Malcolm Pruitt was 2 for 3, and Darnell Washington was 1 for 1.
Wow.
Like, you didn't have many incompletions unless they were deep balls down the field.
Harder throws, of course. Right.
Like, if they're going to give you that,
I don't know how they possibly can because it was such a losing formula last time. Which
I just think that's they are so afraid of giving up the long passes, and they've always played this way. If you remember, Freiermuth last season, his one big game was 10 catches against the Bengals. I think it was 10 catches on 10 targets. Everything right there over the middle of the field because they just give it up.
Yeah, and their tackling was really poor in that game too. And I don't know if the defense is any better.
Yeah,
right?
they trust the offense so much. Okay, we don't want you to score quickly and easily because we want to try to turn you over at some point.
Right. They've been fortunate the last couple games. They've been doing some of that.
But we can't give up the quick one.
No.
Because you're not getting any chance to turn anybody over on that.
No, and they don't trust their corners or safeties all that much either. They still have good players.
Yeah.
It really comes down to that on defense. Their personnel is poor. And, we've talked about this big picture stuff. I'm being kind to say they need 5 or 6 new starters. I think it's like 8.
Folks, this is Matt, not Dale, making fun of the Bengals defense here.
Oh, it's bad. I forget who I was listening to. Someone that covers them was talking about they got 5 or 6 defensive starters that are definitely going to get cut for cap reasons. It's not even an argument at this point.
Well, and they just put Sheldon Rankins on the reserve non-football on this list.
Okay. Does that mean he's definitely not playing this game?
Definitely not playing.
Yeah, okay.
Like, he's probably their best guy or one of their best
probably
guys.
Their best interior player, probably. And he's okay,
Yeah.
they really need the Dax Hills and Miles Murphys and all those draft picks to start coming around next year.
If I were them, if I'm coaching, like I'm looking at, if I'm coaching the Bengals, I'm Zach Taylor going into this weekend. I'm looking at this going, okay, are Kansas City's backups going to beat Denver?
Probably not.
Probably not, but they're 8-point underdogs.
The Broncos are?
No.
Oh,
Kansas
the Chiefs
City
are.
is.
Oh, okay.
Because they're not playing anybody.
Yeah.
Not only do I need them to lose that game, but then I also need Miami to lose to the Jets.
Oh, right.
And then I need to win this game in Pittsburgh. I'm going to play my young guys. I'm going to play the Miles Murphys of the more snaps than I typically do because I don't know what they are.
Maybe. I think you got to do everything possible to win the game.
I get it.
You're playing first.
But what you've been putting out there defensively isn't working.
No, it's not. I don't know if this is the game to do that, but it's a good conversation. There has to be some big picture thinking about the defense.
Like, I need to know about some of these guys.
Because there's a lot of incomplete grades on some of those dudes. And there's been some injuries. Both the Michigan defensive backs have been hurt a lot this year. So you don't know as much more about them.
Well, and Murphy he has to start because Sam Hubbard's he's out.
I say Hubbard's out too, right?
So you're starting Miles Murphy.
Yeah.
So, Miles, you're
played last week.
You're going to they could put Joseph Asai out there, which they do.
And he's okay.
But I'd rather see what Miles Murphy is. Get him another game's experience here.
I definitely get your point, but by no means am I playing lesser players just for future development.
No, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
but
not for this
here's
game.
their problem is all their good young guys. A lot of them, Dax Hill's on IR,
Yeah.
DJ Turner's on IR.
Yeah, those are two.
I mean, Logan Wilson's has been on IR. Like they're
even the guys you can kind of count on, even if they haven't lived up to expectations, or at least you had high hopes for still, or the book's not written on them, you don't know anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing Jordan Battle over Von Bell. Like that's kind of where they're at.
Yeah.
Josh Newton's already in the lineup. But
I mean, other than Hendrickson, no one's really playing well on defense.
yeah,
Right.
so they are what they are.
Mm-hmm. Again, they're gonna, if they can turn you over, if they could get some sacks, that's been the formula on defense. That's the only thing that's been better on defense than when we saw these guys last.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
and that's significant, but it's also don't put the ball in harm's way, you know?
Yeah. Anyways, let's get to another break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back to finish up the show right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And Bill Barnwell, Matt, put out an article today.
Yeah, I didn't read it yet.
Week 7, the teams nobody wants to face in the playoffs.
We just kind of made that joke about the Bengals.
Yeah, well,
really
of course, the Bengals
that
are
team.
one of those teams in there. We say that, and I used to say some similar things about the Steelers on some years when they didn't make the playoffs.
Okay.
In the Killer B era, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I don't want to play against Ben and
2018 when they went 9-6-1 and didn't get in. Like, that was a good football team that had some injury issues. If they would have gotten into playoffs, could they go and win a game? Absolutely. And that's kind of the situation with Burrow and company.
Yeah, but I guarantee the Steeler defenses were better than this one.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, it's a respectable, not bottom 5 defense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. Somebody on our message board said, because I mentioned something about Mahomes, and they said, well, you said the Steelers like Mahomes. Yeah, they like Mahomes. They brought him in for a visit. Kevin Colbert loved him. He said,
As a draft prospect, folks. Yeah.
Well, why didn't they move up like the Chiefs did? Well, I'm like, well, first of all, the Chiefs were drafting ahead of them.
It was an earlier first round.
Had an earlier first round pick. It wasn't much earlier, but it was earlier. The Steelers, if you remember that year, were picking 30th. Because they had made the AFC Championship game the year before by the way, beating the Chiefs in one of those games.
Is that the Watt year?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. So then they did just fine.
They did fine.
Right.
Roethlisberger was 35. Nobody knew he was going to blow his elbow out the next year.
Yeah, to say the timing wasn't. You weren't in desperate need of a quarterback at that point, but he was older and you were starting to look.
Yeah,
and he was a great guy. I mean, you could see why. Well, of course, I almost said you could see why they like Mahomes. Well, yeah, you could see why they like Mahomes.
Yeah.
Here and,
but to move all the way up to 10 when you still had 35-year-old, you still had Roethlisberger putting up 4,000 yards and 28 touchdown passes. The Chiefs were in a different spot.
I was going to say, they probably would.
They had figured out that they weren't going to win with Alex Smith. They could win enough to get into the playoffs, but they weren't.
Sure.
They weren't going to be good enough to do anything beyond that. And Alex Smith at that point was 34 or 35.
My hunch is Steelers were not in trade-up mode, period. I mean, maybe 2 spots.
Yeah, if he gets to 25, maybe we'll trade up to go get him.
But not trading next year's first or whatever.
Because the thing is, if you do that, now the pressure is on. First of all, how does Roethlisberger react to that?
Oh, yeah.
He was ticked off they drafted Mason Rudolph.
Sure.
Like in the 3rd round. How does he react to you trading up for a quarterback? It would be almost like the Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love stuff.
But heavier, because I know it cost the Chiefs a future first.
Yeah.
And it probably would have cost you, it definitely would have cost you more.
Oh, to move up from
Chiefs.
30 to 10?
I mean, of course, it would have been the right move looking back. I mean, I'll give you 10 first round for Mahomes, of course. But at the time, that's not where they were at. I mean, it could have ended up being Watson or whoever. I mean, like, trading up for a quarterback at that era wasn't the move yet.
Not yet, no.
Right, no, not yet.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't afford to go up, A, that high, but B, again, what it would do inside your own locker room.
Yeah.
Would perhaps tear your team apart to a degree. Because, again, Roethlisberger, you still had Pouncey, you still had Foss, you still had that offensive line unit that was there that was very much in Roethlisberger's corner.
Yeah.
And if you make a deal like that,
It's a seismic shift.
It's a seismic shift. And, by the way, you wouldn't have gotten T.J. Watt.
True. And
Which
next year's first and whatever else, too, would have been part of the package.
And then you wouldn't, if you do, you wouldn't have gotten T.J. Watt. Now, the next year, you couldn't have made the move up to go get Devin Bush. Okay, I get it. Hindsight's 20/20 on that one. But Devin Bush went where Devin Bush was supposed to go.
Oh, yeah. Everyone thought he was a top 10 pick, him and Devin White.
Yeah. Neither one of them worked out.
No.
That's just how the draft goes.
Right. No, I get a kick out of draft hindsight because I try to pride myself in remembering where all these teams were at the time.
Yeah.
And knowing that all of us don't know what players are going to be good and bad. You know what I mean? Like, well, this is why they didn't make the move, or they weren't in the market to trade up, or boy, they really needed a nose tackle, or their guards were the worst in the league, or for any team it is in around the league. It's easy to say, why didn't everyone trade to one to get Mahomes? If you're going to trade that far, why not go to one?
Yeah.
I mean,
then
nobody knows
you're
the
sure
answer.
to getting
right,
him. Yeah.
Right. Like I'm proud of myself because I had Mahomes my number one quarterback that year. I would have traded for one for him. I mean, the Browns weren't offering Myles Garrett for him. That spot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Draft hindsight is a slippery slope.
It's like the Lamar Jackson stuff because the Steelers didn't take Lamar Jackson the next year, and I distinctly remember in my next to last mock draft. I was still working with DK Pittsburgh Sports at that time, and I would do a mock draft, like starting with the month leading up to the draft. I did a different mock draft every month or every week. I should say,
or whatever. Okay, like the whole first round or the Steelers.
The whole first round.
Oh, okay.
And I remember mocking Lamar Jackson. The next to last mock draft that I did, I mocked Lamar Jackson to the Steelers, and I got called every name in the book, told how dumb I was.
Right.
Why would they ever do that? They've got Ben Roethlisberger.
I'm sure
that
guy's going to be a receiver anyways.
He's not any good.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, I think he's a good quarterback.
Yeah, he was also my number one that year.
Yeah.
And it would have been the right pick, of course. But that's super hindsight. I mean, obviously. And he didn't get rushed in at Baltimore either.
No, he did not.
Which would have been great for him here. He probably could have hung out a year while Ben was there, and Ben may not have been thrilled. But
imagine they would have had him in 2019 when things went, when Roethlisberger tore his elbow up.
Right. Well, that's the move. I mean, that one's more logical than trading up for Mahomes or for anyone. I mean, not even knowing who the names are.
But it's just the hindsight stuff is.
I have no idea if they liked Lamar or not. I don't think he was in for a visit, but I'm sure they had great respect for him.
Mike Tomlin had dinner with him. I know that.
Did he?
Yeah. With everything that happened this weekend, the draft order
got stood on its head.
Patriots
number one now.
Yeah. So you've got the Patriots now by doing nothing but losing some more, getting the number one overall pick. They're not going to be in the quarterback market.
No.
But they could say, bring it.
Yeah. So the people that I trust, that I've listened to, again, I haven't dug into the deep end of draft. I think Travis Hunter is the best player in this draft, and that he's special, and they absolutely could use a receiver and a complimentary corner to Gonzalez. I mean, every team could use Hunter. That's great. I would field offers. I mean, I knew this. Everyone knew this. But when you watch the standalone game this week against the Chargers and just the names that are out there for them,
it's pretty bad.
It's really bad. I mean, I even threw it on Twitter hoping that some Patriots fans would help me on this. I'm like, besides May and Gonzalez, who are my foundational players here? I mean, like, who am I excited about for the next 5 to 10 years?
Not Pop Douglas.
No, right. I mean, no one on the O-line. Ramondre Stevenson's fine, but by the time they're good, he won't be, and he's a fumbler. Like Barmore would have been that guy, but he's got all these off-the-field medical concerns, and he hasn't been great since he's been back. Kyle Duggar's fine. I mean, I'm reaching here. Like, who are the foundational dudes that have any value on this team? Doesn't look like it's Jalen Polk. I want the DJ Moore for Bryce Young deal.
Yeah, I mean, something along those lines.
Yeah, and it could certainly be a receiver that comes my way too.
Yeah. Tennessee is now 2.
I bet they're all of a sudden in the quarterback market. they could say whatever they want.
Yeah.
They're probably pretty happy to be 2.
The Browns are now 3.
Yeah.
The Giants went from 1 all the way down to 4, even though they have 3 wins just like the teams ahead of them.
Yeah.
So you got 4 teams now with 3 wins.
Do we think 3 of those 4 teams are all quarterback needy? If the Browns do something dumb.
Here's the thing. I don't love this quarterback class.
I'd say, is it worth it to go all in on these guys either?
I wouldn't.
I don't know that yet. But
I like Cam Ward the best.
Yeah.
I think Sanders is massively overrated.
Mm-hmm. I'm not super impressed with either, but maybe they'll grow on me as I learn more. I'll be the first to say I'm sort of ignorant on how good they are. But, man, this seems like not the year to mortgage the farm to go to 1.
No. I mean, I get it if it's, you sell yourself. You can talk yourself into liking anybody.
Yeah.
Jacksonville is now 5. They moved down 2 spots to 5. Then you have at 6 the 4-12 Carolina Panthers.
It's not a bad spot to be for them. Best defensive player available or whatever.
7 is the Jets. They're a team that could trade up for that quarterback.
Yeah, they could do something dumb.
Stupid.
Yeah. Or do something even dumber and bring back Rodgers.
8 is now the Raiders. They're 4-12. They've gone from being in the number 1 spot a couple of weeks ago down to 4-12 or 8. Then you get the Bears at 9.
Okay, they won't be in the quarterback market, of course.
The Raiders could certainly be in the.
Yes,
they would have to trade up to do it.
I would say 5 or 6 of the top 8 need a quarterback.
And then at 10 are the Saints at 5-11.
I wonder if. So that brings me to a sort of different topic, but I don't know how many starting quarterbacks are going to be available. If we say there's only 2 coming from the draft, I don't think Darnold leaves Minnesota.
No, I'd be shocked if they let Darnold go on.
Do the Saints just totally punt and offer Carr to the Titans for a 2nd-round pick or something? Maybe he's somebody you could have, but I don't want. I mean, I like Justin Fields, but am I trusting him or Daniel Jones or who else?
Somebody might trust Daniel Jones.
I'm gonna say, but who's definitely you count on as a starter?
It's not a great year to be in a quarterback needy situation.
No.
Which, again, when we talk about the Russell Wilson situation here in Pittsburgh, that's why you can't let that guy walk.
Now, to say, it leads me to the Steelers. Is well, what's your plan there? You're not going to get Darnold.
Aaron Donald, or Aaron Rodgers, or
I mean,
no.
I don't want Flacco or Cousins or any of these guys that are super old. That's for sure. And I wonder if I'm the Vikes, what could I get for J.J. McCarthy? You might get the 3rd pick in the draft from one of these
I would
teams.
certainly entertain offers because Darnold's still young enough that
if you give him a long-term deal and have a McCarthy deal set up with any of those quarterbacks,
you might regret it. It might end up turning into a Daniel Jones situation, but it might not.
It might not. I mean, I think he's earned it. And if you could give one of the best teams in the league a top 8 pick, yeah. I mean, the best corner in the draft.
I don't know that you get that though.
I don't know. I mean,
he didn't play at all in the preseason. Like
what I'm saying is, it's so quarterback needy.
Yeah.
That you now's the time to sell him. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think who can pounce on it.
Situation some of these teams are in because again.
I mean, if you're the Niners, do you overpay Purdy because you're not going to? What else you got?
Probably.
Probably. Right. What do the Giants do now? And I mean, there's a lot of these teams that have nothing.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely. Anyways, Matt, that's going to do it for today's show.
Yeah, good stuff.
Absolutely. So we will be back again tomorrow. We'll celebrate my championships. No, we won't do that anymore. That's the last time I'll mention it. Last time I'll mention it. But for my partner, Matt Williamson, for Justin Miller here on site, running the Justin Miller hotline, for Tyler Vittmeyer, making sure our video gets out there onto YouTube. I'm Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.